I keep getting some questions. That means there's interest, so that's really great. This is MikeRatner.com. Continuing our Grand Tour Ideas, on my sort of meta ontology, whatever philosophy of things. Um, Yesterday, I did a little piece answering uh, the first question I ever got in starting this series, really just recently, about the ego. And it's a concept I have that we have a term for ego, but why don't we name the selfie of the mind, the self that we project into our imagination or fantasy? Because I think, number one, there's some therapeutic value. If we could analyze a bit, like, well, what are you projecting there? It might give a little bit of self-reflection and, sense of, I guess, exploration to, how we see ourselves and what might that reveal to actually step back for a moment. And it fits into my other writings about morb theory because the modus operandi of rational behavior, MORB, morb, becomes morbid when it's totally unassociated, unaware of its own internal dialogue, which I term ID. What else is it? It's not what's in your wallet or purse. It's your internal dialogue. It's what you say about yourself, how you perceive other people seeing you, and how does that play into things? So my search, I guess, for sort of, I guess, in a metaphysical way, looking at causation and how it affects our way of being in an ontological sense, affecting our quality of existence, is really what's driving me forward because I have this common sense notion that we might be able to aspire or raise our consciousness. And I talk just about what that might, what that enterprise might require. But I'm not just talking about for myself, although you being the conduit is really the most important first step, right? Not changing what's out there, because that's the illusion. It's not real. Work on yourself first and then gain a proper perspective, which might be more 360. And also what I talk about in the BI deck, which is our theory of mind, of how we interpret things through our beliefs and intentions and so forth, might be something you want to look at. BIDEC, BIDECK.masstrance.com. And there are links through that, grandtourideas.com and MikeRatner.com. A lot of .coms because I want you to check it out. I'm encouraging you on this exploration. So this question for today, and thank you. I'm going to keep everyone anonymous because I don't know if you want to be associated with my ideas yet. Are they really that profound or revolutionary? I don't know. I think so for myself, but they merit further exploration. So I really encourage your feedback and thank you for the question. Talking about reckoning. And this one's really good because I've been talking about how we come to reckon our states of consciousness, if we can sort of step back, as Krishnamurti would say, the observer being observed, and to be able to do it in a way where you're not going off kilter to such a degree that now you're back into that Weltslosh, which we've been talking about, the way we're dwelling in the world, and the German term that I created, Weltslosh. And it just means that, we're having an examination of how we're dwelling within, you could say, the confines or the space or the dimension of your existence. So how we reckon with it. So it's a bit of cognition. What we also are recognizing it. But it was just the other day, and seeing this today, I was putting it together as adding the rec formula as the recon. Now think about this. Now I was just talking about before, recognition, having some sense of this recon is really an important thing because recon is sort of like the ignition. I recognize something here, and then I'm a bit more tuned to how I associate. Okay, so the association is number one with what? I awareness. How's my state right now? If I'm not checked into my own way of being in the present, I might have lost it in the moment, and that could be having a negative or disassociated effect on others. And that has been, for me, a challenge in the past because I want to get close to some ideals or some ideas, and I've always sort of pushed them away because my intentions weren't quite right, or it was sort of I affected the space, what I call a metasphere, the atmosphere, social climate between us in ways that weren't the desirable outcome that I initiated because I wasn't quite right within myself. So I had to learn to reckon and deal with cause and effect and its impacts and do the best I can to associate first with myself so I can be right in this orientation. And it could be towards a goal. And for me, it's exploring this realm of consciousness that I call ultra being, where I'm ultra being present, ultra, being kind and loving. And through this way, we create excellent examples that present exemplify enlightenment, at least to the degree that I can examine it and experience it, and that way I can express it, become a channel in this way. I'm plugged into something. It's the idea of ultra being, an excellent example of enlightenment. UBE3. That's it for me. That's my formula right there. My long-lasting legacy. Pass it along. UBE3. Similar to Gandhi's dictum, you be the change. And Einstein's, E equals MC squared. Why not? Let's take it to the next level. So what would it be? It would be modeling excellence, examining in this moment of how I reckon with things. An obvious choice comes to consciousness. Rather than perhaps doing what was disoriented in the past, you sort of just come into place where whatever is right speaks to you, or you ask it, and you have permission. And then you can move ahead. So the REC formula in this regard, which I talked about before and never paired the two until this moment and asking the question if there was similarity, there hadn't been, but I think we could, because I like to have unique indicators of the words I use. I come up with words mostly as acronyms to share the formula, like UBE3, ultra being, an excellent example of enlightenment. So it's a practice in the way that we're present, right? Ultra being present. So in this form of reckoning, we could mesh the two ideas of the WRECK acronym to meld something that elegantly brings down the old paradigm or prism that prevented us from having sort of the ability to attain a bit more of this connectivity that allows us to be in this particular state. And this would be an ideal state. So you could be in flow, you could be sort of really having a sense of well-beingness, but the ability to sort of then grasp these ideas to share it with others, because that way you become the conduit for it, a representative of this teaching, you could say, an emissary of this work, because really just sort of an ambassador of something that you represent and take a stand for, that then when you share it with others becomes a gift. And this really is a relatively, you could say, mastery of the moment, but ideally it's sort of just really being present to what is. And this reckon can go deep. So let's looking at the other idea of creating the REC formula that brings down the old paradigm, but elegantly, so no one's getting hurt. We're talking about wrecking in a way that's a different design here. So it's REC, the old way's gone, and this is something new. It's pristine in the moment because we're practicing the way we're being present. So how do we do it? WRECK real quick. And then you give me ideas, listeners, viewers. I'm just doing this as a podcast right now, mikesmastermind.com, for more of these inputs into the Welt slosh and ultra being an excellent example of enlightenment. And your feedback helps sort of create a self-liberation movement where we can move forward. selflib.org. Yeah. Okay, so in the vision of this, the REC formula. So the idea would be, as we come into any situation, it could be a paradigm where we're looking for a shift, how we take a stand for something, and it could be adversarial. So this is the point you have to get. The W in the REC formula is to be warm and welcoming as best you can be, because you don't know what's coming at you. Now, of course, you have to be prepared if something, that was unexpected, and we'll get into this as we roll through it. And it's just the way of our being. So it could be a welcomed opportunity here if it's greeted the right way. So we want to find out, step on the, best foot forward. The best way forward would be to be warm and welcoming. So when someone comes into a preview or something comes up, rather than having the negative, typical RTP, repeated thought pattern, or triggered response, which I call prions, PRYONS.com, we sort of are just present. And in the way that we can be a bit put on the charm offensive, but just really be naturally warm and welcoming, because how else would you want to be? If someone you cared about was greeting you, you'd want that in kind. So to be warm and welcoming is the first thing, right? Yeah, let's be the best way we can be, to be welcoming something that is new happening in this moment, and being open to it. So the right way, so WRECK, and this REC formula and how we're going to REC on this, is to keep it real, to keep it right, and to keep things relevant to what's happening. The person has the right to be here. Perhaps there's something that you thought they were wrong, but they're actually right about something because they feel they're right. And your job is to figure out how it is that they believe or think that they're right, and certainly giving them the acknowledgement that they have the right to think the way they do. And this righteousness sort of prevails something in our better inner and understanding and intersectionality that's going to allow us to keep it real. and to have it relevant to what's going on in our reality here. So that's really good. So the E in the REC formula basically is to keep it really easy. We are seeking enlightenment, but if you make it difficult and sort of like over people's heads or sort of way out there, in New Age spaceland, you're going to lose them. Well, some might follow you, but they won't be grasping it. You want to make it easy. It could be entertaining. It could be educational. It could be exciting. It could be enriching. Make it easy. That's the first thing. It's the premise. It's easy to be here, to be in the space, easy to be with me, easy for us to get along. This is a deep sort of, etching of something that, we take a stand for and sort of right in the middle of the REC formula. Make things easy for people. Because if you don't have ease, you're going to have dis. And I'm all about stopping dis. I'd have a second movement outside of self-lib, or inherent in the self-lib movement would be stop dis. Stop the dis. You catch it in your TWA. It's your eye awareness of your thoughts, words, and actions. So are you creating sort of an enlightened environment of ease, or are you introducing dis-ease? It's profound. So in this reckon formula, and how we changed the whole paradigm, we could actually talk about transformation. And it's practice of the way that we're present and the way that we're being. So we're warm and welcoming, we're real, relevant, and helping people feel right here, right on. They have the right to be here. It's so right, right? Right. And you make it easy so it can be enlightened. And the C in the REC formula is to show an extreme amount of consideration. Consideration of your ideas, what it is that you have to share, what's important to you, and the consideration of how they are in the space. Are you comfortable? How am I keeping company? The consideration might be that they're thirsty or hungry, and you sort of miss the signals of the parched lips and sort of the growling stomach. Well, you have to make your best effort to sort of show some compassion and consideration and immediately take care of people. Shows really great company. And the K in the REC formula is to be kind. There's your test. Because some things will come right up against you and be like challenging you. It's a test, Can you stay kind through it all? Because if you're going to be the way shower, the idea of UBE3 as a self-liberation movement and taking a stand for something that you want to derive excellence from, then this sort of, to me, is the crowning achievement of someone. No matter what's going on, they're able to keep a semblance of themselves so they can be resourceful in helping people, and they stay kind. Right? I think if we're going to talk about enlightenment, we have to think about how we're lovingly present and in our way of being, the effect it has on others. So to reckon this first, I think is sort of like the way show. It just opens the door into potential. And it becomes a natural practice of how you're being present. And you might examine it otherwise, right? So this is where we can reckon things. So something to consider, contemplate on. I'd love to get your feedback. The REC formula and how we take ourselves to the next level in our exploration of these ideas. And again, I'm MikeRatner.com, and you get the grandtourideas.com to sort of get sort of a discombobulated collection of my ideas as I'm putting it together in sort of one place. And there'll be links there for stuff that relates to it. Thanks again. Again, that's grandtourideas.com and mikesmastermind.com. Bye.